games. I will bring that up a lot. But let's have a look at the classes that these players are going to be bringing. Oh, that sound effect was blooming marvellous. I did not expect that. So Rogue has been banned by Jambre, so BigBen has
So we
Rogue.
think.
And Rogue has also gone for Jambre. Yeah, we hope they've been banned, but you never know. There might be a Priest ban thrown in there as well. Interesting, though, with both Rogues. Providing the Rogue ban is correct, what do you think of Rogues being taken away?
So, Rogue is a kind of a deck also like Priest, where it doesn't have any insanely fantastic matchups. It's just kind of, if you look at the Vicious Syndicate data, pretty green across the board. It's got decent matchups against pretty much everything. So again, just getting that out of the way means that you're not left open to a kind of insane high roll that can happen in these series. Because obviously, as everyone's talking about, Prince Keleseth with or without Shadow Step on turn 2 gives you such a huge advantage in those games. So don't leave yourself open to the roll of the dice. Play some good proper Hearthstone.
But then you've still got... no, I'm not even going to get into that conversation because we still have other decks that are mental. I mean, we're not seeing as much Big Priest nowadays. I mean, speaking of just rolling the dice and hoping for the best, I am happy that Highlander Priest has come of age because Big Priest was annoying.
Big Priest was a horrible deck.
It was the worst thing to happen to Hearthstone ever, I think.
Other than Hearthstone.
Exactly, yeah. No, but seriously, I like to see the kind of games where tactical decisions do come into play and it isn't just about playing the right card on turn 4. So you're completely right. Getting rid of Rogue, putting yourself in a situation where you give yourself the best odds, I like that a lot. But let's talk a little bit about these players then. So BigBen, as I said, I still can't get over his change his name to BigBen. I preferred XL Ben, XL, X. 4, 7, 9. It's like those the gamer tags you used to make when you first get a gamer tag, and it's like Sniper X1 400,006.
I didn't have that. I was Exciting Turnip.
Is that one of those ones that just randomly generates for you?
Yep.
Okay. But why aren't you Darrock Exciting Turnip Brown? You've
missed a trick.
You have missed a massive trick there. And have you missed Jambre? Did you miss him?
Muchly.
That
was a fantastic.
That was a good one.
Yeah.
So yeah, Jambre not getting into Live Finals last season was a disappointment, especially after being the reigning champion at that point. Do you think that he's got what it takes this season, or do you think this is maybe a bit of a drought for him?
So, again, given that he's most famous for his aggressive Paladin build, but just aggressive playstyle in general, although I said earlier on that it might not have been the best direction to go for from Green Sheep, there's a lot of options at the moment, with it be aggro Druid, aggro Paladin, Rogue, Shaman, Hunter. There's a lot of, or even Pirate Warrior still, there's a lot of aggressive decks you can bring. So if he does favour that kind of playstyle, the world is his oyster for what he wants to go for. But maybe he's bringing something else a little bit more standard, just the good decks at the moment, which it seems to be he could very possibly be doing with the Rogue and the Priest.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know with Jambre. This was the situation in global games, right? Is we had players like Jackie Chan, who is known for memeing,
right,
and then you have Jambre, who is known for bringing something a little bit different. But actually, from the players from global games, I think actually Jambre did the best out of all of them. George C didn't win a game, just to point that one out, and he'll probably hate me to say it, but he didn't. He played Freeze Mage a lot, and unfortunately at the time, Freeze Mage wasn't as good as it should have been.
He played some cracking games, to be fair.
He almost won unwinnable games against Druids that gained 60 armor or something ridiculous. I don't know, but regardless, we will talk about George C a little bit later as we're diving into the first game between BigBen and Jambre. And of course, you can see their team logos next to their names as well. BigBen representing Eminem and Jambre, the new Diabolus?
Diabolus.
Diabolus. See, I say Diablo as well, right? I should probably say Diablo?
I'd call it Diablo. Yeah. I wouldn't discriminate.
No? Well, that's nice of you.
Chase your own bliss.
It's hard having an American wife. My pronunciations change every other day. Otherwise, I get shouted at. So, BigBen is going to be playing Druid here. Of course, has the early...
A very druidy druid as well.
Yeah, has all of the early ramp, and that's why he's coined out the wild growth. But it's going to be against the Druid of Jambre. So, we're Druid off.
Also getting quite a lot of ramp. I've got to be honest, I haven't seen much Jade Druid mirrors at all. Since the nerf to Innovate, and it kind of fell off in popularity. I suppose also with the nerf to Spreading Plague. But in this kind of instance where Ben has got pretty much every single ramp card he could get outside of the Nourishes, if he could find himself an Ultimate Infestation, the game is going to be looking so good for him. But if not, slightly less so.
Yeah, it becomes one of those things with these Druid mirrors, is who gets Ultimate Infestation first.
Yeah.
which is a shame. Of course, it doesn't always end up like that. Sometimes the ultimate infestation for both players ends up in the bottom, and that can be a very interesting game because I love Jade Druid Mirrors, mainly because it's so interesting about the trades and what you do. Of course, the early game is about who gets ramp first, but because they've gone tit for tat here, and the ramp is actually fairly even, we should be in for a decent one.
And it looks like Jambre is actually going to be getting the, I suppose you could even call it Plan A with this deck, where you might not even need the lucky draw of Ultimate Infestation because you just out-pressure your opponent. And particularly in the mirror, there's no real way to come back from it because from this point on, it seems like Jambre's Jades are going to be at least +1/+1, maybe 2/2, bigger than whatever BigBen is going to be throwing down. He will just be winning the trades every time between the Jades and pushing a lot of damage to face. So Ben is really going to have to be hoping to find lots of green men from this point onwards.
Clock is ticking for BigBen here.
I could see you rubbing your hands as I was just talking through that.
As he does have to decide to play, but you're completely right. It comes into a situation where it's who gets the bigger Jades quicker. There was the temptation for maybe silencing the Aya, but I think you may need that Spellbreaker a little bit later for something else, perhaps. And that might be a consideration for Jambre here. He might be saying, well, do I trade off this Aya to guarantee the fact that I get another Jade from it in case he draws a Spellbreaker? Especially as now that thought will be prompted in his head because he's just drawn a Spellbreaker of his own.
I think the main thing for Ben here is the Spellbreak. I mean, he had better options kind of on that turn anyway with the Maya Keeper, sorry. But with the Spellbreaker, if there's a Bone Mare in the deck, that's really what you want to be hitting with the Spellbreaker, because the +4/+4, you're just not going to be able to deal with that big minion as a Druid. So saving it for that very possibly. But outside of that, using this as quickly as possible on the Eye of Blackpool, I think should be your priority, to be honest.
Now with Wrath as well, Spellbreaker Wrath. The difficult card in this matchup, and it was difficult at 5, it's even more difficult at 6, is Spreading Plague actually. It's when do you use it? Because yes, okay, it can stall an opponent, but then you may be a turn behind on the Jade acceleration, as it were.
So, in terms of just numbers, Spreading Plague is pretty good here because all your opponent's minions are at 3 health. You have a Drake in hand, so you want to bring them down to 2. And the Spreading Plague would be a pretty good way of doing that. But I guess Ben is thinking, because my opponent has the initiative on Jades, they're bigger than mine, it's likely that he's going to be going wide on the board. So he's thinking Spreading Plague will still be good later on down the line. And although I said that the Spellbreaker, you want to use it as early as possible on the Aya, I think just wrestling back board control is more important, so the Spreading Plague would have been better there, because I just don't know how good it's going to be from here on in.
The Spreading Plague, and I also want to go back a few turns. I mean, Jambre getting the 5 damage to face instead of trading off his Aya and getting the extra Jade. I wonder whether that will punish him at any point. But I guess that is a pretty difficult read to have. Saying, well, does it matter? Oh, Mark of the Lotus in there. Okay, now Spreading Plague into Mark of the Lotus looks a little bit nicer. Yeah,
looking pretty juicy. Kind of wishing you had even just a 1 mana, Innovate for 1 mana here, so you could fit in the Maya Keeper as well.
Spreading Plague was 5 mana. That would help, wouldn't it?
Yeah, both of those would have worked out a lot better because, you know, a lot of the time, the reason that Spreading Plague got so much worse isn't because of situations like this where you're on turn 10. It's more just that it comes down a turn later. The aggro decks have an entire another turn to develop and to push aggression to face. But here we're actually seeing very drastically the effect of it being pushed up, because it looks like the Mark of the Lotus isn't even going to be coming down here.
But right on cue, Ultimate Infestation is available at 10. Oh, that's a Sea Giant as well.
That is a juicy tech.
Talk about throwing something a little bit different in. Sea Giant we saw a lot of in Evolved Shaman, as the expansion grew with Nguro, for example. And well, it works out in this matchup, but I think it's too much to pass up Ultimate Infestation here.
Yeah, in terms of everything it does, even if you ignore the card draw, the 5 damage and the 5/5 is not far off from an 8/8 in its own right. And then next turn, you open yourself up to so many more powerful options, because it's getting to the point where any Jade card you play down will probably just be better than the Sea Giant anyway, if you can find yourself a turn like Jade Behemoth and in addition to the Jade Spirit. But I guess Jambre here is thinking, going with the kind of the Hearthstone fundamentals, in play your stuff first, then draw cards after.
Yeah, I think either option was fine, but I do like this play. I mean, potentially a waste of the Spellbreaker, but it's the pressure you're putting on BigBen. I mean, you've already got him down to 14 health, and now you've got an 8 attack minion, and it's begging the question of how do you answer this as BigBen?
And to be fair, Jambre is sticking to his game plan of not winning through the hyper late game of my Jades are bigger than yours when we're in fatigue and it's just Jade idols over and over. He's going with pressure. He's just making sure his board is slightly bigger than his opponent's at all times, so he always takes the value trades. And we've seen this in action, even just looking at the health total. The only way this works out in a Jade mirror is if one player is just slightly ahead at all times. But it looks like with this play, he's actually going to be falling behind now.
Yeah, but the problem for BigBen, fallen out of cards. Fallen out of cards? Run out of cards.
All out of cards.
All out of cards. Fallen, all, and all, run. They're all different words that all work together depending on how you put them together. But Jambre does have the refill opportunity now for Ultimate Infestation. I'm being told that I have scores from the floor that Mysterious has lost to Toast. 3-2. Toast Monster, to be specific, in case anyone thought it was Disguised Toast. It's not Disguised Toast, it's Toast Monster. He won 3-2, so that's his first season in the Premiership, and he's beating a veteran of Mysterious.
That's right. He got very, very close to the victory last year, getting to the finals of the Season 3 Mysterious. Am I correct?
Yeah.
I'm going to keep
his
voice?
You can nod.
Okay, brilliant.
Yep.
But here, it just hasn't been going well. Obviously, he did lose to Green Sheep in the finals last year, and it's not been continuing well for him. Hopefully, he can find a bit more success later on.
Well, we were talking about BigBen not having the chance to refill his hand. The Nourish came along at just the right time, and now he has Ultimate Infestation as well.
Right on time.
Right on time. Like it.
Carry
Plenty of options for Jambre, though. Now, of course, he's got Swipe if he wants to just deal with this annoying Drake at the moment. But I think playing Malfurion is too tempting. Malfurion plus a Jade Blossom, perhaps?
That fits in pretty nicely. Are you going to be going for the Poisonous Spiders here?
Ooh. Yeah, I think you might. It's very rare that you do see it.
The Drake's down, though, so you're not afraid of a Drake. It's not Priest, so you're not afraid of Potion of Madness. There's not really all too much that can go wrong with it.
Because typically we're seeing one Drake being run in Jade Druid now, right? Rather than two, so that's why you have less fear. I mean, double Swipe is a fear, I guess, but I mean, if you're going to be playing around 2-card combos, then you're not going to enjoy Hearthstone.
And there are the Spooders. Still no way to effectively deal with them from Ben. The Eye of Blackpaw summoning a 4-4 and a 5-5. It's a bit more stark here, the difference between the minion play and the Ultimate Infestation play. From Jambre, you could kind of argue that it would have been better to go for the Ultimate Infestation rather than the Sea Giant. But here, Eye of Blackpaw is just so powerful on the board. I think you've got to keep up your board initiative here.
How stark is it? Is it like a Tony, or is it like a...
it's like a Rob.
Like a Rob?
Yeah, more like a Rob.
More like a Rob.
Like a later season Rob.
Okay, yeah, I feel that.
Where he's got a nice beard.
I love me a good beard. That sounded really bad, so I'm not going to say it ever again, but yeah, BigBen is just ignoring one of the Spooders and saying, well, I want to get the extra 5 damage to face.
Yeah, there's not too much that can go wrong because either he trades into the Drake with the Spider or he swipes and he trades into the Ghoul with the Spider instead, both of which are about the same for BigBen. So going face there with the Drake, I do like a lot. And he's left himself with a lot of options now. The next turn for BigBen is looking immensely powerful with Eye of Blackpaw and Jade Spirit. And that option just isn't really there for Jambre. If he wants to go infinite, he has to shuffle this Jade Idol as he played the first one on the first turn of the game. And outside of that, maybe you go Jade Idol and Nourish, hope to draw it back, but that's so low tempo. Going with Nourish here is abysmal.
It's definitely not pretty.
It's worse than not pretty. It's abysmal.
That's a pretty dire word to use. In a dire situation, you bring out something like abysmal.
I'd say
atrocious.
It's atrocious. Yeah. I mean, he has to go here. He sees it. He has to go for the minion here with the second Jade Idol. He's now forfeited any chance to go infinite. It's not the most... You are very often in the mirror going to be playing the second Jade Idol to capitalize on your own board lead. But when you're fighting against an opponent who is very likely going to develop much bigger Jades on this turn, it looks decidedly worse.
Yeah, and I think a lot of Jade Druid players have got used to playing both Jade Idols on the board now because of Skulking Geist.
Right.
And a lot of priests were running it, and you just, when you got the Jade Idols, you slammed them on the board because you knew later on they were just going to be whiffed away. Of course, it's not going to be a tech inclusion in a Druid deck, but you're completely right. You need to get ahead with this Jade race. And now Mind Control Tech is going to get some value here. Oh! I mean, it doesn't matter. You play it twice, but still. Getting Aya would be massive here for Jambre.
Does it? It would. Okay, it gives you the amount of Jades that you have summoned, not your opponent. I forgot how it worked for a second, even when you steal it. But it doesn't matter. It would be the same anyway. But yeah, stealing the Aya, giving yourself a 6/6 Death Rattle is insane, especially when you can follow up with Jade Behemoth. I suppose the only other consideration is it better to go with Spreading Plague than the Jade Behemoth? Probably not. I think you just need to be developing as much attack as possible to fight back, and he gets it. Whoa.
Oh no. BigBen's going to need some repairs after that damage.
Yeah, it's starting to look more and more like he's dinged his last donger.
Yes, he has.
Eat your heart out, Dave. The home of witty banter has moved.
2 mind control decks.
Yeah.
It is interesting, actually, for Jambre. A very bold move.
I mean, we're seeing more and more cards like that making their way into Jade Druid because prior to the nerf, I think it was basically a 26-card core deck, or maybe even 27, and then you'd stick in Spellbreaker, Big Game Hunter, Mind Control Tech, Doomsayers, depending on how you wanted to tech your deck. But now that the Innovates have gone, and it feels like some of the other cards have become less core, you have more room for these tech cards, like the Spellbreakers that we've seen in this deck, the Mind Control Techs as well.
And now the Spreading Plague coming out is going to give Jambre another opportunity to play Mind Control Tech here. Of course, it will not be as good of an opportunity as he had previously, but still a good chance to steal something worthwhile.
Yeah, just to give your opponent no chance of getting, as we see there, a disgusting Mark of the Lotus, and giving yourself a pretty gross Mark of the Lotus.
So you could now what? Spreading Plague. Yeah, no, you want to Mind Control Tech first, then you could Spreading Plague, and then you could Mark of the Lotus. Either way, that fills your board up, right? Should do. You can get
pretty
6,
good to me.
depending on trades.
This has been such a back and forth game. This often doesn't happen in the Jade Druid mirrors because, as I was saying earlier on, one player gets ahead on the Jade count, and then from there on in, they just get value trades every turn of the game. But we've seen a lot of comebacks to and from both players. It looked like Jambre was winning earlier on because of the very early Aya, and then Ben managed to steal it back, but then the Aya got stolen again. And now with Mark of the Lotus, this feels like it's going to be a board that is just impossible to steal back from Ben.
Yeah, I'm not sure Ben can get back into this one, and I think it all comes down to that Mind Control Tech switch. Jambre was counting for a little bit, seeing if there was any lethal opportunity. Of course, he did have quite a lot of damage on board, but he had to get through those 3 taunts first. There was a possibility of maybe Mind Control Tech, stealing one of those 1/5s, then trading in using Mark of the Lotus, and I think that may have worked, or it would have been very close to anyway, but just a safe play from Le Jam.
I think the main thing here that could have been done differently from BigBen was the turn he was presented with of do I go for Ultimate Infestation or Aya Blackpool here, because he ended up going with the Infestation, which, although it is an immensely powerful card, for what it actually does to the board for 10 mana is pretty underwhelming. It's more just that you get the armor and the ridiculous amount of refill. So I think making sure you stay ahead on the board with the Aya Blackpool as aggressively as possible, then you follow up with the card draw, probably would have worked out a bit better for him, because as we can see here, he's got plenty of cards in hand. That's not his worry at all. It's just the fact that he doesn't have any way to come back on the board, because it's not in Druid's arsenal. This is their big weakness, and BigBen fell victim to it.
Jambre takes the lead early in the series, winning with the Druid Mirror. Always a good feeling, actually, winning a mirror in general, but getting a Druid Mirror, because they can be a bit sluggish, a bit of a slobber knocker. You've got to slog it out, but he got there in the end. And Mind Control Tech, I think it swung it as it can. So a nice inclusion there from Jambre. I mean, we have seen Mind Control Techs come and go throughout the meta. God, that scared me every single time. It's okay, I'll get used to it. It's new season, all right?
I was fine, by the way, just in case you were wondering.
So you've turned his sound down, but not mine. Thank you very much. Priest, Mage, Druid still left for BigBen, of course, but Jambre now winning with his Druid has Mage and Paladin. Who'd have thought Jambre with Paladin? Eh? No one?
Seems like a pretty excellent prediction.
No. We had like 2 seasons of that, and we're not doing it again. Otherwise, the banter bell goes out the window.
Not the banter
We bring
bell.
the banter bus in.
Jeez. All right then.
Yeah. Then it gets intense, just like that camping trip I had last week. Whoa! Okay, I'll stop. I will stop. Yeah, you got it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Wish I hadn't.
Sorry, I'm going to put that to one side. I think we've had too much of the banter bell today.
Am I not needed anymore? It's just Dan and the bell is his co-caster.
Some could argue it already is down in the bell, but we wouldn't suggest that.
Some
at
would
all.
be wrong.
Would we? Right, game number 2 is going to be Jambre with the secret tempo mage this time, and BigBen is going to stick it out. Can I also point out how well BigBen has laid out his room for his webcam? I feel like the rest of his room is an absolute mess. He's got his Pac-Man there, he's got his M&M shirt on the wall, Hearthstone on top of the drawers. Perfect.
Yeah, the little companion cube as well to keep him company.
Isn't it?
Lovely.
I like that.
But as I was going to say before I was so rudely interrupted by an inanimate object, I think the Druid is going to be the sticking point here for Ben. He's up against now the Paladin and the Mage. And once again, this is the aggressive secret tempo mage that we've seen a lot more recently. And it really just dominates Druid. These exact cards in Cabal Crystal Runner and Kirin Tor Mage just push aside basically anything the Druid can do to come back, because you put down the Cabal Crystal Runner. It's such an awkward number for the Druid to deal with. It's too much for swipe. It's going to take 2 Wraths to deal with it, something like that. And it's a high enough attack to push a lot of damage. So I think if we see any kind of secrets basically coming down in the next few turns for Jambre, there's going to be very little way for Ben to come back.
I have seen a few people run, is it Cabal Lackey as well, the 2/1/1 mana that can draw you a secret, or play you a secret, sorry, should I say, for free. It's not been the most favourable inclusion. It seems like people have dipped in and out of it again, like other cards. But Kirin Tor Mage is always awkward on turn 3 to play it without a secret, I feel. It doesn't feel great, but it is still a body, and you can't resist it.
It's not bad. The 4/3 for 3 is perfectly good enough in this situation. Obviously, Ben counting his lucky stars in that he did not have a secret to go along with it, because, you know, if he'd gone for a Nourish and had it counterspell, that would have been game ending pretty much on the spot. Maya Keeper being, even if that was Mirror Entity, just as a 3/3, it's too much stuff from your opponent that you're not able to deal with on that turn because all your mana goes into the minion.
So Ben doing his best just to compete with the board here, and now for Jambre, okay, I like Mana Worm off the top. It allows you now Mana Worm into Frostbolt. And clean up this board, actually. Use the other Mana Worm to just take out the 2/2.
Yeah, I think you're probably going to end up, as you said, using the Mana Worm to clear it off, if you are going to at all, because of the fact that Swipe can take it out. But because, I think now, basically because we've got a Fireball in hand, just going face it, saying you have to clear off pretty much every minion every turn, or I'm just going to be able to push enough damage to close out the game. And even if the minions are cleared off, they're not reduced in the Cabal Crystal Runner, and they don't have any secrets to go along with it in the Kirin Tor Mage. But it's enough refill. Even without any of the synergy, it's good enough.
And Nourishes aren't what really BigBen wants to see at the moment.
Absolutely.
He needs answers, to be honest. Jade Behemoth was a good answer, but I feel like this board was too scary to just start plugging straight away.
So, for Ben, I think on one of these turns, because he's at 7 mana now, maybe we could have seen going for the Nourish for ramp and the swipe, rather than just swipe and hero power. Because of the fact that it gives you the very next turn, the top deck of Ultimate Infestation puts you in such a good position. But also just the second Nourish for draw on the following turn gives you the ability to come back in the game in a pretty favourable way.
Fireball is available just to deal with his 3/6 if he wants to. Of course, you can just trade and ping, but trade ping, play Kirin Tor Mage. Really, this has been painful for Jambre. He's had to coin out his Cabal Crystal Runner. He's just not found the secrets, and as a secret mage, that's not very fun.
Yeah, if this Cabal Crystal Runner was 2 mana now, this game would so be over, because the fact you'd have to clear both of them with the Fireball as well. But unless some kind of a removal option comes down right away for BigBen, this 5 connecting to the face might just be too much.
Yeah, it depends if he can find something like Malfurion to stabilize. Of course, Ultimate Infestation, we know the power of that as well. But it's how badly do you search for those cards right now? Do you want to answer this board immediately with Jade Spirit and Jade Blossom, or do you nourish and look to get some of those big game-winning cards? In the end, it looks like BigBen's gone for the previous play of just trying to contest this board.
Yeah, if you nourish and you... I mean, to be honest, even in the best case scenario, you've only got 5 mana left to work with Nourish. You've already used a Swipe and a Wrath, so it's unlikely you find the removal options you need. So just loading up on the board, praying that your health is enough to work with for the moment is probably the better play.
Finally, a secret arrives for Jambre. And Counterspell is actually pretty important going into turn 10 against the Druid. I don't need to say why, otherwise you know what happens. So we'll just ignore it. Okay?
Just ignore it. Yeah. Obviously, Faceless Behemoth, the real scary card that can come down from the Druid on turn 10. Drawing you no cards, gaining you no armor.
But that is going to be the perfect... I mean, actually, that's really good. Primordial Drake has worked out extremely well for BigBen. Jambre actually throwing gestures in the air to say, oh, come on, anything but that.
A pretty good top deck. It could have been a Mirror Entity from Jambre. I think in the list he's running where we saw a Spellbender in the Mulligan, he's probably only running 1 Mirror Entity and 2 counter spells, I think is the optimal distribution of secrets at the moment. But it could have been a Mirror Entity, in which case copying the Drake could have been pretty good for the Mage, just to hopefully break through your opponent's Drake and then start plowing to the face with your own one. But all the mana costs here are just really quite ugly for Jambre.
And I mean, just like that, Jambre was in an okay position, just 1 secret a little bit earlier on, and this game could have already been over. But instead now, BigBen has lethal available. Jambre is going to have to use this Fireball to contest this board. He's going to have to take out the 5-3 realistically. Arcanologist can't draw anything that can keep him alive as far as I'm aware, unless he's got a cheeky ice block in there. But I doubt it.
Yeah, doesn't seem like it. And he's just throwing it down right away. Any minion he could actually play out there would have just been eaten up by the already damaged Jade, which is just too devastating of a position to find yourself in. Because that's the kind of matchup where if you find yourself using your minions to fight back for board and you're not taking the value trades, it's just over already, because anything the Druid can play from there on in will just beat whatever you can play.
And we've already seen such variances from both Druid and Mage today. The same deck's being played, but the Druid not drawing its ramp, and then we've seen the Secret Mage not drawing its secrets, and, well, that's how the matchup can go, right? We can see the Secret Mage dominate, or you can see the Druid dominate. It entirely depends on that early game. So, Priest and Mage left for BigBen, Mage and Paladin left for Jambre. I'm wondering what kind of Mage we're going to see from BigBen as well, because it does intrigue me that we have seen 2 tempo mages already, considering the fact that we have seen such success from the Gunther, Discover, Frostlinch Jaina kind of control mage as of late. I thought we were going to see a lot more of it today, but I guess that says a lot about the players rather than the tournament itself, because, I mean, look at the players that have it. It's Jambre and Green Sheep so far, and they are aggressive players.
Right, yes. I think for the mage from Ben, one of the things you have to always think to yourself when you're bringing your deck is how does it fare against Priest at the moment, given that it's such a highly brought deck to pretty much any tournament. And for the Gunther Mage, I actually struggle a lot as the Priest against Frostlich Jaina. I just find so often that the amount of elementals they're throwing down means their health total is kept too high for you to get a 1-turn kill, and you just end up using all your resources to kill off an endless tide of water elementals. But maybe I'm just playing the matchup slightly incorrectly, but I would definitely not hate the bringing of a Frostlich Jaina sort of mage in this meta.
Yeah, and from what we saw from BigBen last season as well, he piloted his control decks very successfully. Yep. And he is very much a statistical-based kind of player. He knows what works well on ladder or tournament, depending on which situation he's in, and then he will bring those decks so that he can put in the best performance as possible. And I love Ben as a player. It was a shame for him last season not to excel that little bit further and maybe reach the finals, which is what he would have liked to have done. But it is going to be You've called that perfectly. I mean, we didn't even know that he was going to play the mage here. That is actually a complete luck that we were speaking about it.
It's another point for me. Ring the point bell.
Never touch my bell ever again.
Is that the end of bell? No.
I knew that was coming. Ah!
Hey.
No! Stop! Stop it! Okay, right, moving it into Hearthstone as Jambre gets the joyous start of Mana Worm, but there is a lovely answer soon for Ben in the Doomsayer. I don't think you need to pull the trigger too early here and go for a Frostbolt. You're not too worried about it. Although, well, are you?
So, if you go for Doomsayer on 1, there's no question that that bad boy is going off and you will be blowing up your opponent's board. On turn 2, it's a little bit less certain because now we could see something like a Glyph into a Frostbolt to finish this off. But I think it's still pretty unlikely your opponent will be able to kill off this Doomsayer, which is really upsetting for Jambre because he would have had such a good turn here otherwise.
Well, Jambre struggled to get the Kirin Mage into Secrets last game, but now he has the perfect opportunity. However, mana is not going to matter in the situation because you can't take out that Doomsayer. So it's just going to be an Arcane Intellect, I would have thought, but no, okay. Spellbender instead, I guess just going into the next turn from BigBen. Yeah. Try and take out a secret.
I think I like going... Well, I definitely prefer
not
this...
Secret, it's not a counterspell, is it? It's Spellbender, my mistake.
Yeah. The Spellbender is definitely the... better play here than the counterspell because of the fact that coin is still in hand for BigBen, and he looks like he was just considering throwing it out there straight away, and he does because of exactly the scared. He's scared of counterspell just destroying his Arcane Intellect. So it doesn't end up working out for him because of the fact that it was the Spellbender instead. But I think it was still the right play just because it would have been so upsetting if you had your Arcane Intellect roasted.
Yeah, but you're going up against Jambre. Do you think he's the type of player that would play Counterspell when he knows his opponent has a coin? Is going to be the question I'm going to ask to Ben. I probably won't physically ask him. Maybe I will. Maybe I'll ask him later. Saying, you think that was a good play?
All right, mate.
All right, mate. How's it going?
How's it going? You know that time we played that secret? Yeah.
But yeah, Jambre had quite a large smirk on his face after that happened because he clearly was what he wanted. He wanted something like that to come through. And now he's rewarded by being able to play Kirin Mage plus the counterspell. Things get ever more awkward for BigBen.
Yeah, he does not have an absolute blooming idea what is going on here from his furrowed brow. You know, it wasn't a counterspell obviously the last turn, but now that there's 2 secrets, very likely to be a counterspell in this situation now. So do I throw out the Frostbolt? It would have been Spellbender first and then counterspell, but he's probably in this instance thinking it is the Mirror Entity, as that is the more traditional secret mage secret. So the best play here would probably be Ice Barrier into Medivh's Valet, because that way if you are thinking this is a Spellbender, at least you avoid that. Right.
By being able to take out this 7-3. Otherwise, if you try and Frostbolt it, of course, you're going to be punished severely for so.
Was the opportunity to go for Volcanic Potion Ping, which would have played around Mirror Entity as well. But now he knows pretty much for certain that this is a Spellbender, as I believe no other secrets are being played in the Secret Mage variant. Ice Block, you're just not finding yourself in a situation where it's necessary enough of the time. But whew, the fact that it hasn't been activated means this turn is very juicy for Jambre indeed.
Yeah, Ice Barrier is not going to matter too much for Jambre. He's still in control. I think BigBen may have to just play into this Spellbender here with this Frostbolt, knowing that you don't want to waste a Firelands Portal necessarily. Oh, double Frostbolt available now. Makes that decision a little bit better. Or are you still feeling the Volcanic Potion route?
I think on this turn you're going for one of your AoEs, be it the Blood Mage Thalnos into Volcanic Potion to clear off definitively the Medivh's Valet here, or the Blizzard. I think I probably prefer the Blizzard because it stops any incoming damage, and then on the following turn, if they play anything else, it's got a good chance of having 3 health, given that you've got Arcanologist, Medivh's Valet, the Kirin Mage.
The traditional Argent Commander Jambre play, I love it. He shoved it in his warrior list as well, his pirate warrior list. And I think we saw a few pros replicate that, actually. I say pros, I mean Jambre is a pro in himself. I'm sure he'd say that, and I'll confidently say that about him as well. Archer Commander is a very good card in aggressive decks, to be honest.
Yep, giving you a little bit more resistance to AoE. Unfortunately, not fulfilling that purpose in this situation, because a complete board clear is absolutely fantastic here for BigBen. He's got the follow-up of Firelands Portal if one big minion is played here, which, yep, perfect. Get rid of that Lyra the Sun Shard. Easy peasy. And then you're following up with Frostlich Jaina and Medivh the Guardian. This is a greedy list.
A very greedy list, and he'll be rewarded if he can get Frostlich Jaina out and start churning some health back as well by getting those water elementals on board. Of course, the Firelands Portal he couldn't use. Yep, as you were indicating earlier, have to use the Frostbolt first just to get rid of it. It does mean that this allows Jambre now to put something on the board and keep a bit of a presence. The Firelands Portal, if the Spellbender wasn't there, would have been detrimental to his game.
Right.
As that Frostlich Jaina is going to come down shortly, it's going to add the potential just to spiral out of control here.
Yeah, the 5 armor is actually incredibly relevant in this situation. Not always the case with the Death Knights, because often you're in kind of controlling matchups and it doesn't come into play. But here it's going to be fantastic to make sure you can't be killed with Fireball and Frostbolt. And then from every turn here on in, it's going to be healing with the Water Elementals. This is all of a sudden looking pretty damn good for them.
Yeah, unless there's... Have we seen another Fireball from Jambre yet?
I think it's just the one.
If just the one, okay. A Fireball there would have been game over. Would it? 6, 12, 15, 19, 21?
Yep.
Yep. It would have.
Easy game, easy life.
But he doesn't, and then this is where it becomes awkward. You do have to use that Fireball now to clear off the Water Elemental. I think you do. You can't be leaving those on the board.
Yeah, you've got to get rid of that somehow. Because if you fire off the 6 damage to face, all of a sudden that Fireball has effectively only dealt 3 damage, because your opponent can obviously heal up with the lifesteal on the Water Elemental. So I think you've got to clear it off. Pray your opponent doesn't have any kind of AoE. It's unlikely from a mage, but not impossible. You've already seen a Blizzard, a Volcanic Potion in combination with Thalnos. Maybe there's just nothing there, and this one final stand of minions can push forward enough damage.
I think you test for any secret with the Frostbolt here. You can follow up with a Frost Nova just to stall all of this incoming damage. He's going to test with Primordial Glyph. Okay, I mean, I think either way, Glyph or Frostbolt, they do a fairly similar thing.
Yeah, there's a decent chance for a Glyph whiff, but the Frostbolt is pretty much guaranteed to be good.
Yep. Although Glyphs do become Frostbolts very often.
Yeah, that's fair.
In my experience.
But this is definitely a Frostbolt. We know this Frostbolt is a Frostbolt.
I must decide.
And it may be very important that he has to freeze something again as well, with the fact that he can't clear these minions. Yes, he can freeze them, but of course the Scalebane is going to make things even more of an attacking threat.
I mean, I guess he's thinking, maybe I don't have to go for the Frost Nova at all here. The Frostbolt and Fireball clears off the vast majority of damage from the board here, leaving my opponent only with 4. You have seen only 1 Fireball, so there's the potential for quite a lot more burst to come through. Also maybe a Firelands Portal. So I can definitely see the reasoning of going for the Frost Nova here, but to be honest, it's not really going to work out.
I'm late.
BigBen's never late. It's always right on time.
Very nice. I won't ring the bell.
No.
For fear of Jaime Lannister style losing my hand.
Yeah. It's okay.
Oh, sorry, spoilers by the way.
Oh yeah, to be fair, if no one's seen that by now, then what have you been doing with your life? Blizzard off the top is fantastic for Ben to stay into this game, otherwise it could have gone downhill very quickly. Contemplating whether to use this Frostbolt now rather than later, and I think just removing the 5/3 is important.
Yeah. Use up all the mana you've got on this turn, because next turn it's very possibly used up with Medivh into hero power. Primordial Glyph might be enough to push forward.
Oh, this is
Value to win the game.
You want Pyroblast, let's be honest, in this situation.
Right.
But Firelands Portal is too good to pass up, surely.
Yeah, I wasn't even thinking about the Pyroblast. The Firelands Portal is it's fantastic here. This is basically exactly the kind of card you're looking for. It gives you the ability to clear off the Water Elemental right away while developing something, a nice big minion of your own.
Yeah, I don't think it was the correct pick. I mean, it was very ambitious of me to be thinking Pyroblast,
Right.
but to be honest,
Shoot for the stars.
most times I see Primroglyph, I am just thinking Pyroblast. That's me in a nutshell. Now you want to be rewarded with something with 6 health, ideally. Unfortunate. It's just 5 health.
Still pretty good here, because you don't know that there's the Firelands portal, and then it commits the majority of what your opponent can do to just clearing that off. But it does look, unfortunately, like you're going to be left with just a 2-1 in this situation. And your opponent's going to be left with a Water Elemental and whatever this nonsense is in the... Wow, the Bruiser here is brilliant. This is looking really rough for Jambre.
Would have been alright if he'd got Pyroblast. Just saying.
I'm just saying.
Just gonna put that out there.
Yeah. Do with that what you will, my friend.
I think it would have been too big a risk. I think... Yeah, it would have been a stupid play, so I'm not going to mention it again.
I think, okay, it's worth taking big risks in a situation like this where you are undeniably not looking in a great position. But I think it's a bigger risk that you try and get Pyroblast than your opponent doesn't have a way of dealing with whatever comes off the Firelands portal. Maybe they just can't deal with it and you can push enough damage to face. But obviously was not the situation here. BigBen gets both a very nice card in the Firelands portal and a very nice roll off of it with the Bruiser.
And now for Jambre, he's thinking, how can I win this game? Basically, that's the thought process. Do I just concede? Or is there a way that I can actually get through? I've got one more Fireball. I have Frostbolt in hand. That's at least 10 damage. Another Glyph, potentially, in deck. I think he's only used 1, as far as I'm aware. I could be incorrect. Only used 1.
Your opponent's going to be healing 3.
Yeah, well, this is the thing, yeah.
Yeah, okay, I guess maybe there's some possibility. With the Mirror Entity, if he plays Medivh in this situation, maybe he just messes up enough to the point where you can push enough damage to the face. As you said, if you top deck Glyph into Pyroblast or your second Fireball or Firelands Portal, something like that.
But I don't think you play Medivh now. You've got Medivh's Valet, the smaller man, because Ice Block into Medivh's Valet. Because this is a worry, because if it's a counterspell, then you're also annoyed.
I think we've seen both counterspells.
I think we have.
Point,
yeah, you're completely right. And BigBen will probably be writing that down, whereas I am not. Don't have a pen. Should probably get one.
Yeah.
I've written stuff already, though.
Excuse me.
I've got nice cue cards.
Very nice cue cards. Thank you. I'm very proud of you, Dan.
Thanks, Dan.
You are on fire.
And yeah, now it sits in for Jambre as 2 Water Elementals are on board.
Yeah. And with this deck, unless you're playing against a Priest that plays basically no minions for the whole rest of the game, the Frostlich Jaina Mage can so often, almost always, find a way to make a Water Elemental. And from here on in, you're definitely not winning with damage. You're definitely not going to be wrestling back board control. It's over.
Yeah, and after an early lead from Jambre, we now see the resurgence and the rebuilding of BigBen, and it's good to see. I think he needed it, to be honest.
I think he did. He needed a good cleanup.
He did. Sometimes you just have to do that. And now he's in a position where this is the same situation he was in last season, where he was beating players that had done well in previous premierships, and he started asserting himself as a dominant force in the premiership. And he's looking like that again with Priest as your final class as well. You're going to be fairly confident going up against a Mage and a Paladin. Of course, Jambre has hidden his cards. Really, yeah, he has. He's not played Paladin, so he doesn't know what the cards are. So he's keeping something back, a little bit of a surprise. I wouldn't be surprised maybe if we see Mage again from Jambre here.
Yeah, I think that's definitely the way to go right out the gate. It's really unfortunate for Jambre, though, that he wasn't able to take a victory against BigBen's Druid, because that was the chink in the armor of BigBen's strategy. Against an aggressive lineup, the Mage is fantastic as an anti-aggro deck, as we saw with the Volcanic Potions in it, all that anti-aggro stuff, Blood Mage Thanos, all that goodness. There wasn't really much of a chance for the Secret Mage in that one. But the Druid, it could have just been so run over by a half-decent draw from the Secret Mage. And we're going to be seeing it once again up against, as we so often see these days, the Kazakus Priest with Kazakus in the opening hand.
I think you keep it.
I think you
keep it.
I think there's literally no matchups where you don't.
No. I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know why I asked you that. Because I know you keep it, but I was
okay,
like, I just want.
I'm really glad you were playing the idiot there.
Yeah, yeah. Someone has to, you know, and I think it's better that I do because I am an idiot.
Wow. Well, there we go. 2 of the cards you keep in pretty much every matchup. Don't know if you knew that one. little bit of Hearthstone knowledge for you there, friendo.
Priest.
You hate Priest?
Yes.
Yeah, it is, I think, my last remaining non-golden class as well. I'm getting there.
Mine's golden, so
Yeah,
at least I'm there.
There we go.
I have less of a life than you, apparently. So there we go. Sorcerer's Apprentice is nice, but unfortunately it's just contesting a board. And actually, this is why Galactic Crawler has been, well, so great as an inclusion, is that it's just a solid body on turn 2, even if you're not even chewing up a pirate. It works well, of course, more in like Hunter or Druid. We have the synergy as a beast.
But there's just no real downside. The 2 mana 2/3 is perfectly good. It did very good job here of clearing up the Sorcerer's Apprentice, the Acolyte of Pain. Now that there's a Wild Pyromancer as well, it's got a good shot of drawing a couple of cards. The Kazakus, though, that's definitely going to be the play here. Very likely a 5 mana cost card. Probably looking for draw and AoE in the ideal scenario of the potion here.
He's scratching his head a bit, Ben, because he's thinking,
What does this card do?
Yeah, no, he's thinking, what is this secret? Am I going to be punished by playing Kazakus?
Oh, that's a good point. Because if it's the counter spell and you counter your own Kazakus potion, that's really bad news. You definitely do not want to be playing it into a mystery secret.
Yeah, and now he'll know it's not Mirror Entity as well, so he will be hesitant using this 5 mana cost potion.
You are on fire.
And this is where Tempo Mage can get a little bit scary, when it has this ability to clear the board as well as keep stuff on.
When it generates tempo, one might say.
Yeah, clever.
Yeah.
You don't get a bell ring, though. Almost.
Clever, but not banterous.
Yes, it was almost there. And now Ben will do the turn 5 play, which is always a pain to see when you are an aggro player. And Jambre, again, just looking across with a smirk, saying, well, that's Kazakus on 4 and then Raza on 5. What
are you
on
gonna
earth
do?
am I supposed to do?
Yeah. And even on the following turn, we can see the test for Counterspell from BigBen with the Potion of Madness into the Kazakus potion, unless both of these 2 attack minions are cleared up, which seems unlikely. And then you're looking in a pretty good spot. I didn't exactly see what the Kazakus potion was. I saw that gain 7 damage as there was a board wobble there, but I'm sure whatever it is, you're probably happy to throw it down.
Yeah, happier than playing anything else right now. Again, I missed it as well. I was probably talking about bells or something. But I like the test for Potion of Madness. The only annoyance is that it is a spellbender, and that means that you are just going to be giving back a 1/1 in this situation. Unless the Kazakus potion clears board, but I can't actually see what it does. It gains 7 armor and draws some cards.
Yeah, I think the card draw here is probably even better than the AoE because it gets you closer to completing your combo, getting Shadow Reaper and Anduin, but it's also likely to draw you some form of AoE in its own right, be it any cheap spell to go with the Wild Pyro, the Pint-Sized Potion Horror, the Dragonfire Potion, any good stuff puts you in a really nice spot.
And the mage is not in a nice spot already. It's increasingly difficult against a priest anyway, but when you're against a priest that's had Kazakus into Raza, it's even worse. And to be honest, the 3 games we've seen from this Tempo Mage with Jambre has not gone too well. I am surprised people are bringing the Tempo Mage because I've not seen the same success that maybe others have, especially on ladder, and in tournament play I haven't seen it do particularly well. But I guess it can, in the right tournaments and against the right decks, it can be very punishing. For example, when we saw it run Riot in the previous series against the Druid, that's when it's at its best. But unfortunately, against a deck like this with so much AoE,
when you not draw Dragonfire Potion off the top. I think I disagree with you. I do actually like the bringing of this Tempo Mage at the moment. At least in the Ungora meta where it was Control Priest that was brought, I did actually quite like this deck against the Control Priest, and I feel like it's a similar matchup because a lot of the time, you know, they're not going to have the AoE they need to clear off your minions. It has to be Dragonfire Potion a lot of the time, and they're obviously not guaranteed by any means to have it. Unfortunately for Jambre, it was there for Ben. Now it's looking pretty rough because most of the high-value options from Jambre's hand in the Cabal Crystal Runner and the Firelands Portal are now gone, and he's still at 27 health, now 29.
And this goes back to what you were saying earlier about Priest, about it has all these options that do a very similar thing.
Yeah.
Jambre is clearly aggravated by the fact that the Dragonfire Potion was drawn, but that easily could have been something else that could have equally punished him. It could have been Holy Nova, for example, might have been a bit of a nuisance, or Shadowword Horror, like all of that kind of stuff. And it is frustrating because there is only one of everything run in a deck. It always seems like, oh, they've got the perfect card at the right moment. But there are so many good cards that it is just a well-rounded 30-card deck.
So here for the mage, getting the frozen clone is a really nice way of keeping up the value in your hand if your opponent plays something nice and big into it. But the way you play around pretty much every minion-based secret is to play the worst minion in your hand first, because whether it turns into a sheep, your opponent gets a copy of it on the board, or in their hand, you want it to be the worst thing. And that's why the Northshire Cleric comes down first, because he knows that that was a primordial glyph-generated secret, and he's rewarded for this play. Prophet Velen or the Priest of the Feast both would have been very nice for Jambre to get, just to keep up something on the board, keep up the value, which he is very rapidly losing.
Yeah, this is the thing. He's behind on board, and I'm really struggling to see where he wins from this point. This series is very heavily going into favor of BigBen now. Argent Commander isn't really playable here because it can just be traded into so easily. But I think you're going to have to.
Yeah, you got no choice here. The Priest of the Feast has been the bane of pretty much every mage since it was included in Priest decks. I'm not going to say since it's been released, because Priest was hyper garbage when it was released. But
hyper garbage. Not just garbage, but hyper. How does garbage become hyper?
I don't know, but I've been watching Star Trek on Netflix, and I'll report back when I find out.
Maybe it just needs to drink a lot of Red Bulls. Maybe if you put too much Red Bull in the garbage, it becomes hyper.
Hyperactive garbage.
Happens to my nephews.
They become hyper garbage.
Yep, pretty much. I want to throw them in the bin sometimes.
Here we see good use of a fairly underwhelming card in this instance, in the pint-sized potion. Just finding any way to use your low-value cards in the Priest, be it the Binding Heal we see here, the pint-sized potion, maybe even the Power Word Shield. Getting value out of those cheap cards is the mark of a really good player. And we're going to see it work out fantastically here for Ben, because he can once again get a completely clear board and still have the refill with Prophet Velen.
He's going to give a card to Jambre by healing here.
That's true.
But I guess he's okay with that. Well, he must be, because he's done the play. But just seeing the Binding Heal shows that BigBen is teched even more against aggro. Binding Heal is one of these cards that comes and goes.
Yeah, giving 2 cards here to Jambre. I guess he's just thinking, as you so often do as the Priest, card draw is not equal. Mine is better than yours because I'm getting closer and closer to the Shadow Reaper Anduin. And once I do, there's pretty much no way for you to win, because I will clear off literally everything you play every single turn. And I think it's going to be working out for him. It does give Jambre the ability to put forward one last final push, I believe, with this Firelands Portal. Doesn't get the best option. But because BigBen is still at 30 health, it's going to have to be wrestling back the board, and it just doesn't look like Jambre has the ability to do so.
So he's trying his best, and obviously getting the cards is a ticket back into the game, a free ticket, as it were. But yeah, it's looking pretty ugly. I'm just desperately trying to think how on earth Jambre can get back into it, but there's just so much potential for BigBen to just continue this stomping of Jambre.
I mean, the win condition, I think, as I see it, is you bait out the Shadow Death with something like the Cobalt Scalebane, and then you get pretty much on the exact next card, Archmage Antonidas. They can't deal with it. They have to give you the time to generate a whole bunch of fireballs, and then you win from there. But to be honest, that is looking pretty unlikely, given the fact that, you know, BigBen wouldn't even have to use the Shadow Death on the Cobalt Scalebane, and it would then have to be the Antonidas right away. But I suppose BigBen is giving Jambre the possibility to get that with the amount of draw that's going out.
I mean, so we haven't seen Antonidas yet, of course.
That's fair, yeah.
And we don't know. They are closed deck lists. We don't know if Jambre has it in there. Of course, it is popular, but sometimes it's not run. We are seeing Argent Commanders in Jambre's deck.
Okay, that's fair.
Something has to be sacrificed. Yep. So we are thinking of a potential out that may not even be there.
And we haven't seen Burglary Bullies yet either, I believe. I think that was Green Sheep who was running Burglary Bullies in the deck, which definitely does couple with Archmage Antonidas. But yeah, I think having that extra late game value would probably be the way he comes back. Maybe a Bone Mare if that's in the deck that can't be dealt with. If he just gets all the top end of his deck in the next few draws, which is looking pretty likely. I don't know exactly how many cards he's got left in his deck, but it's looking like it's getting a little bit thin.
Yeah, it is slowly thinning out, and maybe that's what Ben is thinking. He's thinking, well, I can just finish this game off quicker anyway. I don't think he's thinking that. I think Ben is just trying to draw cards, and then unfortunately he gave away another Shit Cleric earlier, and he's just having to deal with the aftermath of doing so. But this board is getting a little bit scarier for Ben. He does, of course, have the tools to deal with some of it. Shadow of Death is going to be nice here. Soul Priest as well. That works, of course, well with the Circle of Healing. If you've ever played Hearthstone, you will know that.
Shadow Reaper Anduin would have been the game over card in this instance. Unfortunately, even though BigBen has been prioritizing card draw above effectively all else in his late game plan, he still hasn't found it. So maybe we're going to have to see the Shadow Word Horror coming down. We can see the Binding Heal in combination with the Soul Priest. It does sacrifice 5 of your own health, but to get rid of a Cobalt Scalebane, that has to be a worthy trade.
Yeah, now this was, of course, a possibility as well. Using the Soul Priest to deal. Yes, okay, you're dealing 5 damage to your face, but in this scenario, it doesn't really matter. Shadow of Death clears the board. Ben's clearly not happy with how he's played.
I guess if in this instance he'd found Shadow Reaper Anduin sooner, he'd probably be thinking his play was fantastic because, you know, I prioritized draw, I found the combo pieces I needed, yay me. But because he hasn't found that, he's probably thinking, I'm giving my opponent the ability to find their win condition, whatever it may be in their deck.
Not the greatest choices for Jambre. None of these really do anything in the matchup. Forbidden Flame, of course, can clear a big old minion. Or just like this. Yep, yeah, like the Soul Priest. And that's as best as you can do. Did he not ping first? Could he not ping first? I don't know.
Why would he? That wouldn't clear it if he pinged first.
No, but I thought he could just ping face first.
Oh, well, yeah, he used that Arcane Intellect.
Okay.
Let's see. Was mana used up?
Okay, yeah.
Checks out.
Yeah, does check. Your maths is good.
Thanks,
better
boss.
than mine. You will come to learn across the season. I see very stupid things.
Were you looking at me when you said that?
I was.
Okay.
Yes. No, I was talking to the viewers as well.
Yeah. I thought
they already
I'm
know.
a stupid thing.
They already know.
Okay.
Don't worry. Mind Visions. There's the Shadow Reaper Anduin that you've been talking about. Of course, we all know and we love or we hate, depending on the situation.
And now with the Lyra down, which basically has to be clears because of the high amount of healing spells that Priest can generate, or even just removal. It's just, you can't leave this alive, or you're not going to kill your opponent or wrestle backboard. And I think once the Shadow Reaper Anduin comes down, we will just see a concede from Jambre, because there is no way he is winning from then.
No, unfortunately not. BigBen has got there in the end. He stands tall and proud. And a nice fist pump as well. Yes, love that. Love that from the man himself. Unfortunate for Jambre, though, to go 1-0 down. Similarly to last season, he struggled in these kind of matchups, but a very positive start for Ben.
Nicely done. I think a very good meta call from his deck list, from his lineup in total. The Jade Druid was definitely looking like it could have been a weak spot, but the bringing of Jaina Mage and obviously the Kazakus Priest, which is pretty expected, did a really nice job of just shutting down the aggression from Jambre.
Yeah, I wonder if, again, we're looking at a player being too predictive.
Right.
To be too... What word am I looking for? I said it earlier. Predictable. 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 I'm getting confirmation that Lemon beat Ness